How is everybody? Good evening. How are you?
Thanks for saying what's for asking.
Okay.
All right. Oh, good. We are great. How are you? Thank you. I'm excited that we're going to at least get to start doing live ones. That's going to be helpful. All right. Let me make
Yeah, you can go in person.
Oh, I figured out how to mute people, but I wouldn't really need to do that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I will watch and see if other people join. We are recording. That's why I left myself this really large message that said keep recording or hit record. So welcome to the 1-2 curriculum night. I hope you guys are, I don't know why this is, let's see, hold on. It's coming slowly. It's a buildup, right? Okay, so advocacy. So this is some of the things that we wanted to talk with you guys about. Some of the birthday procedures we're going to have in place. They're pretty much the same as we've had in previous years. So there's not a lot that's different, except for the fact that due to COVID, all of the snacks must be store-bought. And we have a slide on that to kind of show you some examples. So if your child has a birthday, this is super important. Please make sure if you want to invite them to birthday parties, send the envelopes in a Ziploc bag and send them in with your child with directions to hand them to me and then or their advocacy teacher. And then the advocacy teacher will make sure those go into Friday folders. That's super important because it's really awkward for the child if they only have invited some, which they don't have to invite everybody, but it's super awkward for them to start trying to hand those out. And then they have other friends going, well, wait, where's my invitation? And so to avoid all of that, because we still want it is the most convenient way to invite people to a birthday party. Just make sure that they send them to their advocate teacher, and then we will make sure they go in Friday folders in plenty of time. And then if you want to send birthday treats, they just have to be individually wrapped, which we'll show you some pictures of that in just a few minutes. So if your child has a food allergy, those are not always noted in IC. So if there's a food allergy and you don't want them eating birthday treats that are brought in, you are more than welcome to send in a treat or like a box of treats for your child so that when we do celebrate birthdays in class, they're eating whatever their dietary restrictions are. They're able to still enjoy the treats with everybody, but it's super important to be able to do that. And we don't want anybody to feel left out. So just specify what that is for. It's not for the teachers, just to enjoy on plan time. I'm trying to be funny. My kids all know I like chocolate, so I always ask them if they bring me chocolate today. Does anybody have any questions about birthday procedures because most of the questions we're going to answer at the end. So even if you want to write some of the questions down, we can talk about those in a few minutes, but we'll specify a lot of this and we'll go into more detail if we need to. So we do have 2 snack times. We have one in the morning right before our first recess, and then we'll have one in the afternoon about 1:45. So we prefer those to be healthy snacks, like juice boxes and things like that. We're encouraging them to save those to have those during lunch because we only really want them doing water other times. But at lunchtime, they're welcome to have whatever drinks they want to. But we've encouraged them to just do one healthy snack in the morning and then one healthy snack in the afternoon. Specials really would prefer a healthy snack in the afternoons, so they're not all sugared up. They love it when we have birthday parties and send them to specials that way. So, and then Friday folders. Every Friday, we're going to be sending out Friday folders. They're going to be in your child's backpack. There'll be important notes in there. There'll be graded papers in there and that kind of stuff. So you are welcome to go through those, but please make sure that that goes back in your child's backpack so that they can turn them back in on Monday. Because, and that's also where a lot of us are putting their RISE slips. So when they get a RISE slip, it's easier if we put them in Friday folders. So that way you can actually see the RISE and they're not like crushed in the bottom of their backpack. That's also where we put all the birthday invitations. We slide them purposefully in those Friday folders so that parents will be able to see them and they will not get lost in the shuffle. So I hope that kind of helps answer a little bit about that. Mr. Gale was going to talk a little bit about this.
Miss Hamilton mentioned sending in individually wrapped birthday snacks. So on this slide, this is kind of just gives you a visual on kind of what we mean about that. So like Little Debbie, like Swiss rolls and oatmeal cream pies, even like applesauce like that. Those are great, like individually wrapped treats where kids aren't handing them directly to their classmates, where they can, get frosting on their fingers and, they get all the germs on the cupcakes and stuff. So stuff that's individually wrapped that comes in a package would be great. Less mess, less germs.
Yes, less coughing all over it. So when they hand it to them, it's just a package and they can, yes, much better. And then this tells you a little bit more. This has some links. We do depth and complexity. So that's where we kind of dive a little bit deeper into a lot of our subject areas. We love to challenge our kids with a lot of these. We treat all of our kids as if they're gifted, whether they are gifted or not, because every kid is gifted in some area. And so we really like for them to feel like, and we love to give them choices, different ways that they can show their understanding. That is one thing that I really love about Westgate is that we don't make them, it doesn't always have to be paper and pencil. And they, there are times when that's preferred because we do need to see that. But in general, there are a lot of other ways, like if we need to have them verbally tell us, a lot of times I will highlight for some of my friends who have some trouble writing, but they have all these ideas they want to get out. So sometimes we might scribe for them just to make it a little bit easier. But we just really like to go deeper into a lot of our subjects. A lot of your kids are very, very inquisitive and they like to ask a lot of questions. Like we were talking about presidents the other day, and they wanted to know all of the different presidents that we have and why the White House was named the White House. So if your kids had me for social studies, you might ask them what the real name of the White House was before it became officially the White House. So, but we love the questions and we love to dig deeper with them in the moment. And it's really a lot of fun to do that. So, and then some curriculum websites we have for you. Scholastic book orders. We will be sending those this year. Hopefully, I know last year, some of you probably ordered and it seemed like it took forever for your books to get here, and you aren't wrong. It did. Sometimes it took up to 6 weeks. So I'm hoping that this year they will be much faster. I can't promise anything because I don't have any control of it except just hitting the button to send the orders. So if you could do the online, and most of us send a little flag with it that so like here's our class code, so you can just do everything online, and it's super easy. But hopefully the delay in shipping will not be the same this year. And then here's an Infinite Campus website for you. If you ever have any issues with Infinite Campus, Rochelle Goforth is your go-to for that. She always does a great job with that. And then all of you should, we subscribed you to our advocacy pages on Edlio, but tonight you're gonna you'll know who your child has for literacy or math. You probably already do because they probably already come home talking about it. So feel free to go to the Edlio pages for literacy and math and subscribe your children to it, or subscribe yourself to it so that way you can get our updates. And even if you don't want to subscribe to it, you can always just go to the classroom pages and pull them up and see what we're doing in each of the classes. Let's see, that did not go. Let's see. Oh, hold on, don't go there. Hold please, there we go. All right, it's called operator error, sorry. There we go. Hey, Rise, Miss Foley Diaz, take it away.
Okay, I just had to make sure I hit the right mic button. Sorry about that. Rise, I'm sure you're all familiar with. This is something that we could actually look at the kids and give them their own encouragement for themselves to see how their behavior is and what choices we are making. The Rise is done in 4 parts. You do know the R is being respect, not only to those around us, but to the things around us as well as ourselves. This is something that is huge because it is a part of Westgate as that community. We could then go into integrity, which is another area that we need to take control of ourselves. That is a part of honesty, making sure the decisions that we're making are seen as something that is truly what we should be doing, not necessarily what's right or wrong, but what is needed for that moment. Safety, big part of RISE. That is something that we use in the classroom quite a bit, simply because we want the clean classroom. We want to make sure nobody's going to be tripping around. And it gives that full awareness for kids to truly understand that they are part of a group, and that we have to make sure there's no harm to those around us. Empathy is something that I know that we're working in our classroom with right now, because empathy is truly understanding others. Good example is for the pushing in line. You know how kids can be in line. Oh, I want to be first. Well, there's always that reason why. Why is this person doing that, and so forth. And so it gives a great access to starting to think how other people are feeling. Excuse me. Personally, I really try to build the RISE throughout everything that we do. And that's simply because I work with a wonderful team that does the same thing. We try to make sure that RISE is something that is recognized throughout everything that we're doing in the day, and try to recap every day with it as far as our behavior and our choices that we made through the day. I could talk forever on this, and I know Ms. Hamilton's wanting me to move on, so I'll pass it back to her.
Sorry, I muted myself. We could talk a long time on RISE. I really enjoy talking about that. I think it's a great way to remind kids each day about, like, was that behavior RISE behavior? Was that respectful? Was that, are you using that integrity? And I think it's something, you know, that will mold them into great little adults one day. So this is our daily schedule. I did talk about the fact that we have 2 snack times. We do have another recess in the afternoons. And what a lot of us have done, especially with the heat, because it's super hot in the afternoons, is we just do some purposeful play in the classroom. Some of us are doing some yoga. Some of them have some Play-Doh time or just some quiet, mindful coloring, which is kind of a really nice. It was funny. I asked my kids, I was like, do you want to go outside? And they were like, no, it is too hot. So, which is nice. I like to give them kind of a choice in a lot of those kinds of things. And we've all, almost all of us, I believe, have visited the chicken coops now too. So that was really fun. So that's another thing that we do in the afternoons with our kiddos. But then we do our advocacy, and our specials are always at the end of the day. So that kind of gives you an idea of what your kiddos are doing each day. And then we have standards-based grading. Miss Reader.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between the traditional grading system that most of us grew up with when we were younger, and standards-based grading, which is what Adams 12 and Westgate have moved to in recent years. And so on this slide, I don't know if you can see the small print, but both systems use numbers or letters to identify grades. They both are conveying student progress, and they're used for all grade levels, elementary and secondary. And we use multiple pieces of evidence for them. The biggest difference that you'll see is that what we are grading is on the state standards. So what we're trying to see is how close is your child to meeting the standard that assignment is trying to accomplish. So we might have several assignments geared toward one standard, and each time they demonstrate their proficiency toward the standard, they get a grade, and then eventually that all accumulates over the course of several weeks. So it's not necessarily that we're giving an assignment a set number of points and we're marking off on lots of different extraneous details within the assignment. It's more of a holistic view of, are they meeting the standard that they need to for that specific skill. So there's no extra credit involved, and the highest you can get would be a 3. A 3 means that the student is meeting the grade level standard. So I know explaining this to my husband, he's like, my kids should come home with 4s. 4 is the highest. 4 is the only achieved if the students are doing above grade level work. And at Westgate, we do assign some above grade level work later in the year, but at the beginning of the year and the first half of the year, we have to make sure that they're meeting the standards for first grade before we can give them second grade work, or they have to meet all the standards for second grade before we can bump them up to third grade level work. So 3 means proficient. It means they're meeting the standards independently without help. A 2 means that they are progressing towards the standard. Maybe they're getting parts of it and not something else. Maybe they are needing help, like they could get there, but they needed the teacher to walk them through it. Some of those things might be reason for a 2. A 2 is not bad. A 2 says your student is still learning this standard. A 1 is more cut and dry, not meeting the standard. They did not get it. They need a lot more assistance. Even with teacher help, it's still kind of not sinking in. So at Westgate, we do use that 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is pretty rare, and you would know if your student would be set up to be receiving 4s. But for the most part, we're looking for 3s. 3s are often not given at the beginning of the year because it's not possible for them to reach a second grade standard the first quarter. So I just don't want you to set up your students for that, telling them they have to have all 3s at the beginning of each quarter, because that's not necessarily how it works. So we're not doing ABC, we're not doing points, we're not doing percentages, all of those things. So here's a slide that shows all the what they each mean, and I think that about covered it. Am I missing anything, Ms. Hamilton, Mr. Gale, Ms. Foley Diaz? You're muted, Ms. Hamilton. I'm happy to answer questions. I've been working with standards-based grading for all my career, so it's not new to me. If you want to ask me individual questions, even if your child's not in my class and it's specific to standards-based grading, I'm happy to help. Is there anything else I should add, Ms. Hamilton?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that pretty much covered it. And we've had a couple parents throw some questions in the chat, so we should be good. It's just if I can do my slides wonderfully. Okay, so we're going to start with first grade social studies. So this is what we will be doing. We'll be alternating the same thing in second grade as well. We'll be alternating social studies and science. So we'll be doing social studies for like 4 weeks and then science for 4 weeks in each quarter. So so our first quarter, we're doing historical events. I talked about earlier how inquisitive the little friend, like today they were asking me several questions. I was like, yes, we will Google that. Can we read about all the presidents instead of reading our read aloud? Which they're very funny. I love how inquisitive they are. And I love to search for these and find the answers with them because a lot of times I learn just as much as they do. So the historical events, understanding chronological events is what we're talking about right now. And we started with 2 presidents, so they thought all of them would be presidents. And then somebody said, well, I didn't know Martin Luther King Jr. was a president. And I was like, he's not a president. So everybody has a timeline, including yourself. Everybody has so it's kind of fun just listening to the way that they understand certain things and using primary and secondary sources, talking about cultural awareness, family traditions, those kinds of things. And then the second quarter, we'll do geography. We'll talk about orienting a map. We'll talk about just basic characteristics of a map, the different tools you would use when you're trying to find your way. This will come in handy if some of your kids go to like pumpkin patches. I usually get lost in most of those. So it might not be a good idea that I teach geography, but anyway. Third quarter is economics, where we talk about saving money, how to understand the value of a dollar and understanding different jobs that people have and how they earn money. And then quarter 4, we talk about civics and notable places and holidays, understanding about groups and how we have responsible leaders, we have responsible team members, those kinds of things. And that really ties into our community school that we have, and understanding how, you know, we all have to work together and we're all working towards the same goal. So, but I love teaching social studies for my little friends. Okay, second grade, Miss Reader.
Second grade, first quarter, we're starting off with geography. That's what we're currently learning right now. The students this week made a map of their bedroom. So their map had to include a map key, and they have to learn about the compass rose and the directions. We've been learning about map grids and how that works, scale on a map, and so on. In the next couple weeks, they're going to be creating a map project, so that will be fun. We're also going to be teaching them about renewable and non-renewable resources, which ties in with some of Westgate's goals of outdoor education and being a sustainable school, things like that. Second quarter, we're going to dive into history. We'll talk about history of neighborhoods and communities, why people and cultures live in certain places, why people settled where they did. We're going to talk a little bit about migration and how communities and towns are started. In third quarter, we're going to do civics and economics. We'll talk about scarcity, supply and demand. We'll talk about what goods versus services. We'll look at whether buying things and what are the costs of buying this thing, what are the benefits of buying it. We'll talk about how communities improve and how to resolve conflicts and differences in a community. Fourth quarter, we're going to talk about passion projects. I'm going to let Mr. Gale talk about that more when we get to science. But the students will research a specific topic related to social studies or science and create a big board and then have a presentation about something that they are passionate about. And so that will be all of fourth quarter for both social studies and science. They'll be working on passion projects, and that is one of the best parts about second grade is the passion projects.
All right, in first grade science. So that's Miss Foley Diaz.
I'm sorry, I've been waiting so long to be talking about this, so I'm trying to hide it in my head. Sorry, guys. First grade science is, I will guarantee you, the best class, and it's just because this is something where first grade, and I don't tell Mr. Gale and Miss Reader this.
Oh, sorry, hold on.
Well, see, now you're moving me on too fast.
I know, I'm having a malfunction. I told you.
She's doing this just to make me be quiet, and so I'll specifically stay with science.
Right there you go.
But as we go with first grade science, this is where we want kids to get their hands dirty, have fun with science, truly start to understand these concepts. So it's that ignition to have them truly understand that science is not something that, oh, it's boring, but we want to learn more. With first quarter, this is where we truly want to look at sound and vibrations, get an idea of light. This is something that is around them every day. So it's like, not only is it something that we see, but we're going to be able to use a few projects, so that they can actually understand how this is created. Second quarter is Earth and space. This is when we truly understand the phases of the moon, the different planets that we have, but then actually start to understand where we are. And this is an area in which they'll be able to make their own planet. How is that planet going to be a living planet, and exactly what it means to have that out there. Sorry, I have to go ahead to third quarter because this is my favorite. This is when we actually go into biodiversity, understanding what an animal's needs are, and how those needs are met, and how we can actually see those needs out in our community. One example of this is, Ms. Hamilton, you have to remind me, but the kids had their project to make something that an animal has, some characteristic trait that we could use. And so the kids had decided that, well, we had studied crawdads, so they wanted to make their own little crawdad pinchers, excuse me, so that they can be picking up the pencils so they're not disturbing their other fellow students when it drops on the floor. And that was just that amazing process of being able to see the kids create their own idea from something that they just learned. Fourth quarter, of course, is still fun. This is dealing with plants. Again, how this life process is. We will go outside, they will plant their own plant, see exactly how it grows, understand the different patterns, and also start to understand as far as the genetics of plants. Some farmers, of course, they have to change things up so they have a better crop. So why does this happen? How does that impact everything that we're dealing with? I could talk forever on science, and I know my team knows this, but please know that science is an area that we really try to have fun with.
We have fun in social studies too.
But science.
All right, let's see. Oh, Mr. Gill, there you go.
All right. So for second grade science, we'll be starting with Earth systems. So we'll look at maps and we'll kind of locate where our water is on Earth, and we'll talk about why people settle next to water, kind of relate that back to social studies, and how water comes in different forms. We can find it in glaciers. We find it with our rainfall and everything. We'll talk about how wind and water can change the shape of the land. So we'll talk a lot about erosion. And then we'll also be talking about Earth events, so like volcanoes and earthquakes, and how they can change the Earth's surface either quickly or slowly. And then in second quarter, we'll be talking about plants and biodiversity. So we'll talk about how plants depend on water and light to grow, and we'll talk about how they survive. And we'll be able to do a couple of different experiments where we take away one of those factors to see what happens to those plants and kind of observe what happens to the plant. We'll talk about pollination and how seeds move around, and how they depend and how seeds depend on animals. And then we'll talk about how different animals and organisms live in different places and how they interact with each other. For third quarter, we'll be talking about states of matter. And this is my favorite quarter other than passion projects, but just because we get to be so hands-on with our experiments, we get to talk about different substances, and we'll talk about different materials and their properties, and we'll make observations on how an object can be disassembled and made into a new object, and how some changes can be reversed and how some cannot be reversed. And then for fourth quarter, Ms. Reader kind of already touched on this. We'll be doing passion projects, and this is kind of their the last big project that they'll do before they leave second grade and forget us forever and go on to third grade and do bigger and better things. But they really enjoy this quarter or this project because it gives them their choice on what they want to learn about. If somebody's really interested in megalodons, they have that opportunity to research megalodons, and then create a presentation for their classmates, for their peers, and really share that knowledge and everything that they learned. In past years, we've had a passion project fair where other students and classes can come through and students can present to their older siblings or their friends in different grades. And last year we had the passion projects set up during the carnival, and so parents were able to walk through our classrooms and see those, and they did awesome with them. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what this group of second graders can do this year and see how just see what they choose. But I love passion projects. So
All right, so that takes us to our literacy that we have. So this year we have a new curriculum. We have our open court reading. We're all still trying to kind of we're not all as comfortable. It's our first year doing it, so we're kind of using that along with some of the other science, the science of reading stuff that we always have used. We use a lot of secret stories in here to kind of help them understand like the different word families, digraphs, those kinds of things. It's really fun. But open court is research based. It has a lot of strong reading and writing in it. We'll go into a little bit more depth about each of them. But as first graders, even if your child is a good reader, it's always a great idea for them to be reading at least 10 to 20 minutes a night, whether you're reading to them or you're taking turns reading with them, but it's so important to immerse them in books and have them understand the importance of reading and practicing that reading. And rereading the same text is the best way for them to build the fluency that they need to be successful and to feel successful with their reading. So, and I'm doing a read aloud with my class, and a lot of us like to do read alouds with our kiddos a lot of the time in our classrooms. So they kind of get to hear the fluency and the inflection that we use in our voices and that kind of stuff. And it's really fun to do that with them, but it helps build that love of literacy. And I think the kids really enjoy it. So here's some of the components that will be in our first grade literacy. So we'll talk about beginning and ending sounds, which is where we are now. We'll talk about the short and long vowel patterns, word families, the blends and the diagraphs, a lot of the inflectional endings. And this is where we'll hit a lot of those secret stories in there. And it's the secret stories if you want to look it up. Just trust me on the part. Don't leave that out. But it's a really wonderful program that we like to use with them. The kids really love it. And it teaches a lot of the mnemonics with it, and it teaches them in rhyme, and it's something very easy, and it has motions, and it really helps solidify those sounds and makes reading a lot easier. And I always tell my kids, don't let those big words like trip you up, because all big words are small words put together just to make big words. And hopefully that takes a little bit of the overwhelmingness out of it for them. When we're reading, we're going to focus on the story elements, the character, the setting, the problem solution. The kids will be using a lot of the things that they're reading and to kind of guide the structure of their writing when they get into that. We really want them to understand what they're reading, to be able to retell it, that kind of thing. Those are really important strategies for kids. The other thing, we've talked about a lot of different reading strategies. We continue to talk about a lot of different reading strategies. And the thing with the spelling, and I really want to touch on this real quick before we do anything else. Spelling is not, when we were growing up, a lot of it was memorize a list of words and then regurgitate them on Fridays on a spelling test. That's not the purpose of spelling. The purpose of spelling is for kids to understand the rules behind it and to be able to use those. So a lot of times they might get a list of words, but on Fridays, I will give them a different group of words. And it's not to trip them up. It's just to see if they can use that pattern and understand that pattern. I teach them how to tap as they're sounding out, because I want them to incorporate all of the skills they're learning in spelling into their writing, because that's the entire purpose of spelling, not to just be able to get a 10 out of 10 on a spelling test on Fridays, but to be able to take all of that and put it into their spelling or into their writing. This is some of the genres that we have: the narrative writing, the opinion writing, informative and descriptive. And then we'll do a lot of the grammar pieces with the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, adverbs. All of these things are really important for them. And they're pretty fun to do this. I forgot to change this website because it's not Spelling City anymore. So I'll change that before we send out. You will also get a copy of this PowerPoint, just so all of you know. But I'll send you out a different link that we have vocabulary A to Z, right, Mr. Gale? I didn't mess that up.
That is correct.
So we'll change that on this slide. So hopefully one of my teammates is writing on a sticky right now that says, go back and change that for all of you. I will also put a link on the Secret Stories website. That might be helpful if some of you guys want to explore that a little bit, and make sure you go to the right site. Second grade, take off.
All right, second grade, we're also covering some of this. I'm sorry, Ms. Foley Diaz, did you want to go?
See, my team knows I love to talk. You go first. I don't know if you noticed me running around, but Miss Reader and I will use these in our classroom, and we call these our X-rays of different sounds. So I'm sure Miss Reader's going to go off on that, because I'll leave my excitement down. You go explain it, and I'll be quiet.
Sorry, I jumped right in. We're going to be following up with some of the things that the kids learned in first grade. We are also using secret stories. Secret stories are just a fun way for the kids to learn how why the sounds make the sounds, that the letters and the word, the letter pairs make the sounds they do. So as like, for example, with the CH, they might pretend to be a train and go ch, 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 ch. and there's a movement and there's a sound and there's a story to accompany it. And all of that, the science of reading and all of the research about reading tells us that as much as we can incorporate movement and auditory and visual, all of that helps the kids learn. So we're going to be following up with secret stories as well, reinforcing it. The kids are already telling me things that they remember from first grade, which I just love. I know it makes Ms. Hamilton happy when I tell them they know all the little stories and rhymes that they learned last year. But we're also going to be building on it. We're going to be learning about superlatives like the EST words. We're going to be working on homophones and compound words. We also are going to be using vocabulary A to Z. And I did write that on a sticky note that we're going to change that link. But then in second grade, we do get into a lot more of not just the foundational skills and how to read, but then we get into more of the comprehension strategies. So we start talking about main idea. How do you know that? Where did you find that answer? It's in the text. We're summarizing. We're talking about point of view of the characters. And we do a lot more with vocabulary. We're going to talk about onomatopoeia and alliteration and rhyme. With vocabulary, we're going to look at root words and synonyms, antonyms, figurative language, all those things. It's just a little bit, it's a step up from what they did in first grade, and they can totally do it. I was telling my class that we're going to be writing paragraphs this year, and they had this look of panic in their eyes. And I reassured them that by the time they get to passion projects in fourth quarter, they're going to be writing 4 or 5 paragraphs to put on their projects. And they were like, I am not there yet. Oh my gosh. So they were freaking out. It was so cute. But they make so much growth from the beginning of first grade to the end of second grade. It's amazing, and that's why we all love our jobs. But Ms. Foley-Diaz, if you want to show some of the manipulatives and things that we use in second grade, that would be great.
Yeah, and I do apologize for stepping into there, but we try to make literacy, just like everything, that this is fun. This is something that we want to be a part of. So just like when we're going over those sounds, we do want to try to break them up and have kids understand. We, of course, have our sight words and everything that we try to bring into the program. And I think you took everything out of my mouth of what I was going to say, Miss Reader. But please know that we do try to make this as you can tell, just something that's enjoyable for the kids.
All right. Moving on. So there's some more components of second grade. Sorry, I should have just gone right there. All my stuff disappeared. Do you want to say anything about all of the grammar?
Yeah, so we're also going to be doing more. So first grade does just 4 different genres of writing, whereas in second grade, we're going to be doing a lot more. We're going to be trying to convince our readers of things. So don't be surprised if your kids come home and they start trying to write persuasive letters about why they should get more video games or, you know, whatever they want to convince you of. They are going to be writing informative paragraphs. That's going to be coming. We're going to be teaching that throughout the year and then practicing that again during passion projects. They're going to be writing letters. They're going to be writing like directions and explanatory paragraphs, and I think that's it. There's a lot of grammar taught in second grade, a big focus on grammar, which is not always fun, but Open Court does a great job of incorporating it into what we're reading and what we're writing, so it's not just, you know, blah, boring grammar.
All right, math. So this is Miss Foley-Diaz and I, and these are the standards. Last year was the first year that we used Big Ideas Math, and we really like it. We changed the order of it just a little bit. So we kind of put chapter 6 in the front. So some of you may see some of those worksheets coming home that we've done together. Most of them we're doing together in class, but it's more about understanding, counting and writing numbers to 120 and understanding the number system. And then we'll kind of start going back. So you may see some of these look a little awkward and kind of think, well, why is this 6.1? And we're at the very beginning, and that's why. So we're just kind of changing up the order a little bit to see if it makes a little bit more sense for our kiddos, if it flows a little bit easier. So that's kind of our plan with that. But understanding number systems, we talked a lot about the how many digits are in the number system. A lot of my kids were just shocked that there were only 10 and they were 0 to 9. But we also talked about the value of a digit, place value, those kinds of things, and talking about addition and subtraction and different. One of the things we talked about today, as a matter of fact, was the vocabulary and how important it is to understand what a number sentence is, and the difference between a regular sentence in literacy. We also talked about vocabulary and how important that vocabulary is. And we talked a little bit about, like, during their MAPS test, a couple of them were saying, well, I didn't know what they were asking me. I didn't know what that word was. And so hopefully we'll be able to fill a lot of that in throughout the this year with math, is to give them a lot of that rich math vocabulary, so that way when they do see those on test, wherever that is, that they'll understand what they're asking them to do. And then in second quarter, we're going to talk about algebra functions, solving those problems. There's a lot of word problems in Big Ideas Math. So one of the things that we encourage them to do is anytime that they see numbers, we encourage them to underline the number and underline if there's a word that goes with it, like 77 crayons was one of the problems we had today. Underlining every time we see a number in there, we underline it, and then we underline the question, because the question is really important, and kind of teaching them or giving them the skills that they need to solve those word problems. I don't remember people really being explicit and giving me some good strategies to solve word problems. So that's one of the things that's all of our goal, is to really give them all of the tools that they need to be successful and to feel comfortable in math and to feel confident in their math. The third quarter, we're going to do our geometry standards, reasoning, and shapes, and their attributes, that kind of stuff. And then in fourth quarter, we're going to go into our measurement. Fourth quarter looks like a ton of stuff, but it's really not as much. They're pretty short chapters in there. And we have measurement and data and probability, where we'll do a lot of our graphing, measuring lengths, and we'll talk about telling time, how to write time. We'll talk about analog and digital clocks. And then we'll also talk about the different ways that we can interpret the data that we find. So it's really fun. We really kind of would rather start there, but we also have to help them understand what number sense is first before we can really have them count sides of things. So, but we enjoy our math curriculum quite a bit. It's kind of fun to get them into that. And I know Mr. Gale does a lot of workshop model with his kiddos. So I'm going to let Ms. Reeder and Mr. Gale talk about second grade math.
So for second grade math and for first quarter, we'll be starting with number systems. We'll be talking about place value and working with base 10. We'll be talking about properties of operations and adding and subtracting within 20. We will also be like comparing numbers, greater than, less than. And then within place value as well, we'll be talking about expanded form, word form, and we'll be talking about, the value of a digit as well. And so for second quarter, we'll be talking about algebra and functions, and algebraic thinking. So this is where we'll really get into the meat of like our adding and subtracting. We'll go all up to 1,000 and even beyond if some students are ready for that. And then we'll also be working with putting objects into equal groups and kind of observing that and kind of explaining what that means. For third quarter, we'll be working on arrays and different multiplication concepts. We'll be talking about measurement, which is always a fun unit for us because we get to go around the classroom and measure different things and can compare objects. And then we'll be talking about geometry, their shapes, their attributes, and then we'll be talking about fractions as well. For fourth quarter, we'll be working with time and money and data. We'll be doing a lot of graphing. And then if there's time, we'll be talking about probability. And then we'll just be talking about data, representing data, and interpreting it as a class as well. One thing I do a lot in my math class is math workshop. That's where we I'll put an interesting word problem on the board, and it doesn't have to be a word problem. It could be any sort of complicated, interesting problem that stretches our students' brains and kind of gets them to think in different ways. But within that, they need to be able to explain their process and their thinking. So they can solve this problem any way they'd like, using any strategy that they know of. But then within that, they need to be able to write down the steps on how they solve that problem, and they can explain it to a partner. They can work with a partner after a little bit. Then they explain it to their table group. They work with their table group, and then at the end of towards the end of class, we solve the problem as a class, and we kind of talk about those different strategies. And then, Ms. Reeder, did you have anything for math?
Not really as much. In my class, we work at a little bit slower pace than Mr. Gale's class. And so we will also be doing some workshop model. We will be doing it a little bit less than his class does, but we'll still be covering the same things. You might notice that between the two classes, we might be learning different things at different times because one class might need more review or repetition, more practice, and things like that. So, but yeah, it's the math is really fun, and a lot of the kids end up saying that math is their favorite subject after PE, of course.
And that is our slideshow. That's it. So does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to ask, or and anything, like if you have questions as far as anything content that we share that we can maybe give you a little bit more information on, we are happy to do that. We have a few minutes before we do our in-person one. So if anybody has anything, just feel free to unmute and jump right in there. You can also throw it in the chat if you would like to. Anybody? Did we answer all your questions?
I know. I was like, I'll just fill some dead space and maybe people will think of a question to ask. I just want to, not to like ruffle our own feathers, but I think Westgate does a great job with really working with the whole child and giving a lot of movement breaks throughout the day, teaching them that social emotional learning, giving them opportunities to think in different ways. Some of you on the virtual presentation won't get a chance to see our classrooms in person, but I just want you to know there's lots of options for seating in each of our classrooms, for wiggling, getting that movement out as we learn, and all of those things help the kids to thrive. A lot of the kids really love school and love to learn, and I think a lot of that is contributed to that. So and those are things that you don't normally see at a regular neighborhood elementary school, and I think Westgate is pretty special in that way. But
we did not talk about our advocacy curriculum at all, which we should have.
Oh.
All the social emotional, which is so important, and we do every single day in all the different ways. But we'll add that before we send that out to you. How about that? So who's going to put a note down that says add that one in there? But this month we've been talking about RISE. So every month we focus on a social emotional topic to help our kids just become better humans and better people. And we have them all the time, all day long. And so all we want is just for them to just learn from their mistakes. We talk about every day that we're all human. We all make mistakes. And just because we make mistakes, that doesn't make us bad kids. If it makes them a bad kid, it makes me a bad teacher. And they're all like, oh, no, you're not a bad teacher. It's like, okay, then you're not a bad kid. So understanding that mistakes are part of the learning and growing process. And we really try to focus heavily on that and how to use their words. I say to my kids every day, words are the most important thing you have. So use them wisely, make sure you're using them kindly and respectfully. So, but I want them to use those words to help us understand what they need. And I think that's so important. Those understanding how to do conflict resolution is so important for our kids. And that's a heavy thing that we do here at Westgate. So that's kind of something that sets us apart. It used to be that weird thing that we did, but now the district loves it. So it's pretty amazing. I think it transforms our children into some pretty special kiddos. So
I just want to go ahead and answer the question that was put in the chat about mixing first and second grade for math and literacy. I just want to clarify, we do not mix grade levels for math and literacy. In our content areas, the students stay with their same grade age peers. So we have all second grade math together and all first grade math together, and same with literacy, all second grade literacy, all first grade literacy. We do mix within the advocacy classes. So I teach, I have second grade advocacy and Mr. Gale has second grade advocacy, but for math and literacy, we might swap kids within second grade depending on the needs of the students. Does that answer your question, Lindsay? I hope.
Oh, yes, thank you. It does. And any other questions that you have? One thing I did want to let all of you know, we are your child's advocate. And so if there's something going on at home, like if you're going on vacation or grandparents are visiting, or you have a pet die or something like a new baby, anything that is happening at home is also impactful in the classroom. And so it's really helpful for us if you can send us an email and just share a little bit about maybe they had a rough morning, maybe they didn't eat breakfast, maybe like if there's something going on that we can kind of ward off at the very beginning to help their day be a little bit more successful, we really would like to know about it. We don't want to know all your business, but if there's a way that we can support your children here at school, the more we know, the better. And I always like to say this, I've learned a lot of this through the years. I'm sure your children come home and have lots of stories. So I'll make all of you a deal. If you don't believe everything your child comes home and says about us, we won't believe everything your child comes to school and shares about what happens in your home. And just think about that for just a second, because all of our kids are all oversharers, including my own. But yes, so anything that they come home and say that seems very odd, please feel free to shoot us an email and go, hey, so just so you know, so-and-so came home and said that they were like skateboarding on glass. Was that really, I can't imagine that that would happen. That actually happened a long time ago that a kid said that, but it was really not, their perception sometimes is really not reality. So it's always helpful to have that extra perspective. And we're always happy to kind of fill in those gaps that they miss, even if they go, oh, I didn't learn anything today. I have no idea what I learned today. Trust me, every day they are learning something new. So, but I'm sure a lot of them come home and go, I don't know what I did today. I have no idea, but they did. So, but I hope that helps clear up a little bit of that. Anything else that we can answer for any of you? You can all unmute if you would like. Anything? Well, if not, we are going to let you guys go. I'm so glad that they love school. Oh, I miss my first graders that are now second graders, but I get to get lots of hugs on the playground, which I love dearly. I get to hear all about their days. So if you guys think of some other questions, please feel free to let us know. You will get this presentation. We will send it out. So you'll get that in your email, and you will also get the recording. So once tonight is over, we will get all of these to Holly, and she'll make sure all of it gets out to all the families. So if there's anything else you need, just let me know. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you later. Bye.
Bye.